thanks everyone for taking the time to join today's webinar on how to master personalization in B2B marketing. My name is Brock Goddard. I'm a demand generation manager and ABM lead here at Exclaimer. I'm going to be your moderator today as we dive into this really exciting topic and discussion on all things B2B marketing and B2B personalization. So joined by two rockstar B2B marketers, and you'll understand why they get that prestigious title of rockstar by the end of this. But first up, wanted you to meet Molly Bruckman, the head of CX and growth at Mutiny. She is joining us today with over 10 years of experience in building personalization, CRO, and ABM teams, and has some really great insights to share with you all today. And then next, just wanted to quickly introduce you all to our very own Alana Trepeznikov, Senior Digital Marketing Manager here at Exclaimer, and she leads our website strategy and conversion rate optimization efforts here within our team. Has tons of experience in digital marketing and some great tips and tricks to share with you all today. So really quick housekeeping item, please be sure to participate in the polls that we have throughout the session, and if you do have any questions, feel free to just throw that into the chat and we'll cover that at the Q&A segment there at the end. So without further ado, let's kick this thing off. I'm going to kick it off actually by asking a question. And that question is, why does personalization matter in B2B marketing and B2B sales? And Alana, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thanks, Brock. I think it's a really great question to start off with. And I think, when you think about personalization, I might be a little bit biased because of what I do in marketing, but I think personalization matters a lot, especially in B2B. There's a number of things that, when we as a team look through, prioritizing personalization that we're taking into consideration. One of the really important ones for me primarily, especially because I do so much work on the website, is the challenges in conversion rates. As B2B companies, we are challenged more and more each day to push the envelope in what we're doing on our website, across our digital channels, and continuously being asked to improve how we're converting people. And so personalization is one of those tactics and overarching strategies that can really help move the needle across that. It's something that can make a really positive impact on your ability to convert people. But even before that, on your ability to resonate with people. If you can resonate with them, if you can engage them, you're that much more likely to convert them. And so that is definitely a really big piece of it. I think that ladders in very well into the need to drive business value. I think marketers are asked more and more to contribute to driving business value. And personalization, similar to the challenges with conversion rates, personalization is one of those ways that marketers can make a really meaningful impact on business value. Again, it really helps drive your ability to engage with people, to resonate with them, and the more that you can convert them, the more leads you can drive, and ultimately those leads can help drive ARR and business for the organization that you're part of.
Yeah. I think also, in today's very digital first world, it's become so important to understand buyer expectations and just their overall preferences into, just how they buy and how they prefer to buy. So, we're at a point today, and I know this is not any new news to anybody. We've been here for some time now, where B2B buyers are expecting personalized, cohesive experiences across, all touch points in their buying journey. So, again, I'm sure as a lot of us know today, it's not just what's desired at this point, it's what's expected. So, Molly, would be curious to hear your point of view actually on that question of why personalization matters in B2B marketing and sales.
Yeah, I think it matters a ton because just websites are so confusing. Like, I go to so many websites, I have no idea what the company does because they've just watered down the message so much, trying to speak to everyone and effectively speaking to no one. And you just kind of look at it with your head cocked like a dog. You're like, what is this trying to say? But basically, it's like a digital brochure that is just trying to cram all of the information you could possibly need in it. And it puts all of the onus on your visitor to your site to have to figure out what it means to them and how they should interact with it, what they should take away from it, what the use cases are for them. But we're sitting on mountains and mountains of data. Like today, marketers know who's coming to this site, and many of them are just enriching their CRM or using it to cold call people that show up. But where I think we have a huge opportunity is to actually proactively use that information to create more relevant experiences for them as they come. And I think we can do a lot better than the cold calls and the AI written emails or just the information that we keep for ourselves and not actually use to better the buyer experience. I can share a few examples, like, because I think it's a little nebulous. Like, what is personalization? What does it actually look like in practice? Three kind of key use cases I see for personalization. First, breaking into accounts. So this is net new accounts that you really want to go after. And this can be really custom and one-to-one. Things like saying somebody's first name and their company name in it. There's different kind of times and places for this. Like, I definitely wouldn't recommend you doing this when somebody comes into your website. That's too much, especially if they're a net new account for you. But if you are outbounding, for example, you're creating a one-to-one microsite for them, this is where you can get really, really tailored for them, because you are reaching out to them and you're telling them, I know your use case, and you can tailor this by persona, by company type, any information you have, any research you've done, you can tailor that experience to break into new accounts. The second is accelerating pipeline. So now this is kind of moving further into the funnel where you know the company's use cases. Maybe you're starting to have sales conversations already. Your sales team has learned a lot from them. You can now really tailor those use cases and problem statements to what you know about them. And then the third use case, even further down the funnel, expand and retain. So when somebody is a customer, what's the next step for them once you've built that good relationship with them? How do you use the information you have, the relationship you built, in order to expand that relationship and get them into the next step? So is that upgrading their plan? Is that changing the messaging on the site? But yeah, everything from kind of messaging that you use to CTAs you put in front of them, social proof you show, all of that can be tailored to all of the information and data you have about an individual. Really want to get into one-to-one personalization. I think this is like holy grail of personalization when you think about like one-to-many, one-to-few, one-to-one, and how you get started with it. And I think we're there from a data perspective. Like, everyone can be doing one-to-one. It's just a matter of how you can scale it. I really like this crawl, walk, run, sprint approach to personalization as a way to get started, especially if you're building an ABM program. Give me a shout in the chat if you're building an ABM program. We really like this framework, and we use it with a lot of our customers as we're getting started. So net new. Oh, hey, Tim, I see you in the chat. Yeah, on the first stage, kind of crawl stage, this is where you're really just trying to, get the motions rolling, work with a couple sales reps, launch your first campaign, get all of the mechanics kind of rolling. I think a big mistake I see a lot of like new ABMers have is really starting with expectations of like booking a ton of meetings and having a huge impact. Like, in the crawl stage, it's really just about the mechanics and getting the motions working, building that relationship with sales starting to work together. As you move into the walk stage, you now have a campaign under your belt, and you can expand kind of that impact from a few sort of pilot sales reps you're working with to maybe an entire sales team that you're working with. You can really kind of codify your playbook, your workflows, create some consistent wins under your belt. And now this is a really good time. Like, you should have some good wins to talk about. You can shop those around to the rest of the org and really build that program up. Once you're at the run stage, this is about now scaling to all of your priority accounts and maybe all of your sales reps. And you have a lot of kind of evergreen plays that you're continuing to run. And then moving into sprint, I know it's usually like crawl, walk, run. I like the sprint for like aspirational. We can all always get better, but now ABM becomes a top revenue program in your organization. You're optimizing all of your levers, and you have kind of new thematic campaigns that you're running versus the evergreen standard plays you run. So for example, like new data report comes out that impacts your industry, you can start to sort of act on those things as they go.
This is awesome, Molly. I love this view, and it makes me curious, actually, Alana, where you think Exclaimer stands on this scale.
I think that's a great question. I think, where we stand today was very different from where we stood even a year and a half from now. I think when I joined the business last September, we were maybe thinking about crawling at that point, and it wasn't even at a one-to-one level. And I think a big reason why we were there is because there's a lot of natural challenges that I think a lot of businesses will face when they're starting to think about rolling out personalization. I think it can be such a wide and daunting topic and strategy to build out. And it's normal to have challenges and to struggle in the early stages. For us, I think, when I think back to starting to even move into that crawl stage, there are a few really big pieces that I think we were definitely challenged with. The first is that in a lot of ways, initially when you're starting out, is personalization is quite manual. You might not have the tools in place, you might not have the strategy and foundations in place. And what you're forced to do, and what we were definitely forced to do, is tackle personalization in a very slow and manual process. We had a definition of a target account. We knew what we wanted to do, but we really didn't have the resources internally to be able to do it efficiently. So we were building pages manually for one-to-one accounts every single time, starting from scratch, because we had no way to automate it. That, I think, in and of itself, was a big reason why it was hard to scale. We really just didn't have the people power and the time to really dig into our personalization strategy and scale it to a place that would actually have a meaningful impact. And so, it really was just, it felt like these piecemealed activities rather than this comprehensive approach to personalization where we were, spreading it across the business. It was a mindset that we all had. It really wasn't like that because we weren't able to scale it to that level. And I think because of both of those reasons, another challenge that we had early on, and I think a challenge that probably a lot of businesses have, is that it caused a lot of top level personalization. We really weren't able to dig into those meaningful places and personalize at those more detailed levels to actually make it impactful. We were maybe scraping the surface of one-to-many personalization, which, mind you, is always better than a one-size-fits-all approach. I think Molly said it really well. A lot of websites nowadays, from a B2B standpoint, we're forced to water things down so much to address as many different audiences as possible. We start to lose the essence of the product in and of itself and those features. And so moving from a one size fits all approach into like a one to many approach is always a win. It's always better than nothing, but we knew that there was more that we can do. We weren't able to do that though, unless we fixed the manual process and the difficulty to scale. I think for us as well, like I said, joining a year and a half ago for the business, we were talking a lot about personalization, but we were facing these very obvious challenges. For me, the perspective that I had was we almost had to take a step back before we took a step forward again. We really had to bring things back to the foundations. And internally, we were really, really intentional about how we approached personalization from that point on. We were able to develop this framework really just kind of organically because we knew we had these pain points. They were things that we really wanted to tackle. And we really didn't have an existing framework that we could find across the industry, kind of in the big wide world that people were using that we knew would work for us. And this is a template that we are actually going to be sharing as a takeaway from this session. So I don't know if it'll be dropped into the chat now or at the end of the session. But I wanted to take some time to actually walk through it and go through a little bit of the different stages that we went through to really kind of get restarted with personalization. So let me just take over sharing here for a second. Let's see. I'm having some challenges sharing. Brock, would you mind actually going back to that slide? There's a Lucid link there that you can click through. And if that's okay, we could just keep sharing. That's the fun side of doing live sessions.
Right.
Perfect. So if you want to actually zoom out a little bit to show kind of the big picture, there's 4 parts to this template. So we're going to go through them one by one. I'll give you a little bit of context to each one. We can start at the left-hand side, which is the part 1 of a level set. And I'm going to talk about this really from the perspective of what we at Exclaimer did to get to that foundational level of understanding. So the first part for getting started with personalization is really doing a level set. What that meant for us was bringing the right people together from within the organization. For us, it was demand gen managers, it was a digital team. We had some content folks in this discussion as well. And it was really important for us to all get to the same level set playing field of understanding what is personalization, what does it actually mean, and what is it that we want to do with this. This diagram is actually created by Mutiny, but it was one that I was a really big fan of when we were going through this level set stage. And what it shows is, yes, you can zoom in a little bit more, Brock, just to show a little bit more detail. So yeah, this is developed by Mutiny, and I thought that this pyramid view was really, really great for this level set to show the different stages that you can go through. At the very bottom of the pyramid is more of that scaled personalization for really large audiences, and at the top of the pyramid is one-to-one. And when you're bringing people together across the business who might not be as familiar with personalization, this is a really great example and visual to show to start getting people into the right frame of mind before you move into the other stages. So here it was really important to understand and level set on who, and then also on the what. So the smaller diagram a little bit lower on this screen was just kind of a very high level view of the what can we personalize. And it was, again, getting people into the right frame of mind to start brainstorming and get the gears turning a little bit on, who is it that we can be going after? What are our different target audiences? Who is our ICP? What is that group of people that we really want to be reaching and getting at? And what can we be doing to make our experience with them a little bit more impactful? And yes, I apologize that the text is a little bit small. Yes, that's perfect. So this was really an idea generator for us and just a thought starter. So when we think about what can we personalize, we can really personalize almost anything. In our case, we were talking about the copy on website pages, the logos that we're surfacing, the social proof, as Molly mentioned, the images that we're featuring as well, the call to action buttons, banners, leaderboards, and modules, which are more kind of interactive elements. We were thinking about our own product as well as how could we use Exclaimer and the email signature banners to, again, reach these audiences and personalize our experiences to them. So this part one was really about doing that level set. We needed to do this before we could do anything else. And what it really enabled us to do was get everyone on the same page. So we can move to stage two now. Stage two is really our brainstorming stage. So again, this is going to be a little bit small, but we can move into each section kind of briefly. Once you do that level set, it's really important to address your goals. Every business is going to have different goals. You could have more goals. You might just have one primary goal, but it's really important with the same group of people to define those goals. You then start to move into kind of an individual exercise. We did this as a group on a call, but we were doing this individually. And what this is really a virtual brainstorming sticky note session. So you're starting to think about the who you can target and starting to break this out into digestible pieces. And then you're also doing it for the what works best for them. So this is really taking the who and the what from the level set and starting to break this out into stickies. And then again, as a group now, you move into more of kind of a collaborative session where you're starting to synthesize. You might have some ideas on the who and the what that are different to other people. There might be some similarities. And so this is really your opportunity to start grouping ideas together and really kind of starting to create that mind map of all it is that you could be doing for your personalization strategy. From brainstorming, we then move into organizing. So this looks like a little bit of a daunting chart. What we've actually done is we've kept Exclaimer's example in here. And what this is you've got the who on the left-hand side as the rows, and then you've got the what's as the columns. And this is by no means an exhaustive list, but this is what worked for us at the time. And so what we started to do is everything we worked through in the brainstorming session, we started to break out the who target audiences as these different rows. And then we simultaneously started to break out what is it that we can actually be personalizing for these different people. And so it's left here as an example for you. Some of these could be idea generators and thought starters, but it's really starts to build a really clear picture of all it is that you could be doing. By no means will you have a section for each who and what, but again, it's a really great way to start thinking about what you can be doing. And one of the things that you could be doing here as well is adding to it. So not all of these will be relevant for you. You might have more that are relevant. You can continue to add to this framework as you see fit. Once you finish with the organization, the final stage is to prioritize. So you're going to have a lot of ideas at this point, hopefully, and it's going to be really important to start to piecemeal and break it out into digestible things. And so you want to start thinking through what is our do now, what is our plan for, and what is our backlog. And so you're really going to start to drop these ideas in based on this, and that ends up being your prioritization framework and what you're going to start actioning on kind of the short term, medium term, and long term. Thanks so much for following along with me there, Brock. I think, this template and Molly said, this template is one that we're obviously big fans of internally. And I think this was a really big part of our ability, and something that enabled us to really bring it back to the foundations and help us start to define those one-to-many, one-to-few, and one-to-one frameworks. So we can maybe talk a little bit about that, Brock. And I know you were really involved in that. So maybe you can walk us through a little bit on how that helped us define these foundations.
Yep, absolutely. I'm just going to try and get it into full screen. There we go. Yeah, just one thing to say on that template Alana shared. I'm not just sunshine pumping because I'm on the same team, but that was an amazing session that we held together. So, I mean, we're really, appreciative of Alana for holding that. I definitely recommend taking advantage of that with your team if you can. But yeah, so looking at today and now where we are in our ABM and personalization journey, we can now break down our strategy into three main areas. That's one-to-many, one-to-few, and one-to-one. I'm sure a lot of you are already very familiar with what those terms are, and I know the definitions can vary a bit business to business, but essentially we're looking at these three categories as just three different levels to personalization in our ABM campaigns. So just quickly to go down the line, um, one-to-many is going to be like more of our fishnet approach to personalization. So this is where we're grouping accounts together by broader criteria like industry or persona. And at this stage, it's a much larger audience of accounts, very top level similarities where we can personalize our communications like through all of our different channels, but with a huge emphasis on scale. One-to-few is going to take personalization just a step further by segmenting those audiences into much smaller clusters of companies that have a bit more like specific commonalities and specific things in common. So for us, as an example, this might be where we're targeting SaaS companies who are currently leveraging an ABM technology like 6sense or Demandbase, or maybe it's a company that's actively going through a rebrand or actively going through an acquisition, just overall more specific criteria. And then one-to-one kind of speaks for itself, but this is really where we're just now starting to dip our toes into a bit by leveraging Mutiny, actually. And this is where, again, speaks for itself, but you're tailoring campaigns specifically for individual accounts with one-to-one, like true relevance that speaks directly to that account. I have here just a quick example. But I guess just to lay the land as where we are today, moving into FY25 for us, going into planning, as we plan out new ABM campaigns, just to kind of show the approach we're taking now, we first start by identifying who is our target audience, and then what level of personalization is appropriate for that audience, and then finally what are the best channels to reach that audience. So this is just a quick example of a campaign that's recently gone live for us. It's our construction ABM campaign, really clear-cut example as to like what one-to-many ABM is here at Exclaimer. And it just shows that even like this more high-level form of personalization can give a really cohesive experience throughout all of the different channels we're using. So you see our 6sense display ads, LinkedIn ads, email signature banners, all driving to that construction ABM page that we built out through Mutiny, actually, all reinforcing the same message. So, all right, enough about Exclaimer. Everyone wants to hear Molly. Back to you, Molly. I would love to hear your playbook on how y'all are tackling ABM and personalization.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share. Yeah, Mutiny's ABM program is about 4 years in. So if we go back to sort of the crawl, walk, run, sprint framework, I'd say we are in the running stage, moving into the sprint stage at this point. So happy to share what that looks like now in this kind of level of maturity in ABM. 3 common steps to build an ABM program. This is what we do at Mutiny. This is what I see across all our customers, and I speak to a ton of ABMers all the time. So I'd say this is quite common, and as far as like an ABM program or campaign framework goes. First, research your accounts. Second, create one-to-one assets, and then third, activate channels. So researching accounts, this is something we do in partnership with our ABM, our marketing team, and our sales team with BDR and AEs to really strategize about the audience, get their context, get their feedback on how they want to sell. And then creating those one-to-one assets, we're looking at email copy, one-to-one ads, one-to-one microsites, and I'll show you an example of what all of those look like. And then step 3, activate channels. So none of that matters unless you get people to view any of the content. And so we do that across a number of different channels. I think this is key because Buyers are everywhere. They're going to listen to what they're going to listen to. They have all of their preferences and communication and channel and things like that. So you want to make sure you're really surrounding them and you're there where they are as well. So our key destination, just kind of like Brock showed his landing page, all of the ads, everything's going to that landing page. For us, across all of the channels we're distributing, we're sending our prospects to one-to-one microsites. And so this is an example of what that actually looks like. We are tailoring the content with variables like the company name. We actually pull in their website URL, screenshot here too. So it really starts to look and feel like that company. We're showing the tech stack that they use. So we show them, hey, we really fit well in your existing tech stack. I'm sure there's a lot of marketers, if not solely marketers on this call, like fitting into your ecosystem is really, really critical. So we show, hey, we already integrate with all these tools you're using. We show relevant social proof. So we actually tailor the customer logos and social proof we show based on who is on the site, whether that be by industry or size of company. And then we tailor actually all of the content and the value props on the page as well. And so in this example, Aptian is a customer of Mutiny. And so the messaging here is we've already got an MSA. How do we expand the relationship? And we have tailored kind of proof points here, which we can, we're actually doing a lot of experimentation with AI to see what we can pull kind of automatically from Gong transcripts and things like that so that we can really scale that impact across our customer base. And I know there was mention of like, yeah, there's a really high lift for one-to-one personalization. With AI, this gets a lot easier and you can actually really scale what you're doing. Mutiny, for example, for those of you who are not familiar, Mutiny lets you put in all of this context as kind of variables on the page so you can at scale build these one-to-one assets for your target accounts. Now, how do we get people to this like really amazing one-to-one asset? Several channels, that's going to be key here. So outbound email, this is something like our sales team is always doing. They're prospecting into accounts. We use data like 6sense data, for example, to prioritize who to reach out to and at what time. But these are generally pretty simple emails. It's like, hey, here's why I'm reaching out. I built this custom page for you so you can take a look at what it looks like in practice, and we send them the link to this page. We also run one-to-one display ads. So you can see sort of a preview image. This is like kind of a cheeky, like click to see more sort of faded out view, but we have these one-to-one ads that we're running for target accounts. And then we also have an experience on our website. This is a side pop, so it's like sort of a pop-up in the corner here that when the company comes to our website, we show them, hey, we have this special page for you, go check it out. And this one I think is really important because I don't know about you guys, but for me, when I get a cold email, if it's kind of interesting and they've sent me a link, I don't click the link. But I do go to the website and I'm like, let me see what they're all about. And so if you're sort of surrounding people and letting them sort of discover in their own way, you have a much better chance of sort of reaching them where they are and bringing them into your ecosystem. One other play that I think is really, really important is we've actually like pre-created these microsites for 5,000 accounts that we care about. And all of those microsites the links are stored in our CRM. So of course, some of accounts are marketable, they're in our CRM already. Some of them are not because they haven't done a form fill or sort of opted into marketing with Mutiny. And so since they're saved in our CRM, when they do a form fill, we can create a workflow that sort of identifies them and then follows up with a really relevant response and a link to that microsite again. So whether that's like a LinkedIn form fill or something on our website, we can sort of catch them and say, look up that page we've already created for them and then send them a follow-up with a link to their one-to-one microsite. So again, it's just sort of meeting them where they are. As they sort of get into that stage of the journey, we can send them back to this one-to-one highly tailored asset we built for them. And then measurement, big question always, what do we measure? Two kind of core ways to look at measurement. One is microsite views and the other is meetings and pipeline. And microsite views is really, really helpful for prioritization of accounts. So we look at who's coming to the pages, how are they engaging, and then what's really important is getting those real-time notifications of people hitting this microsite page. That is extremely high intent. We know that they've just seen a really tailored message, and our sales team reaches out to them right away. Not too fast, not creepy fast, but in good time, they reach back out and say, "Hey, saw you checked out this page. What did you think?" Or even, don't go all the way as saying, "Saw you checked out this page," but just using that as a signal to follow up with them, or sometimes even hit the phones. And then how many people are coming to the pages? This is a really good view of channel diagnostics. So are they coming from that side pop? Are they coming from the ads? That'll help you sort of optimize your levers and make sure that you are, iterating and investing in the right channels. And then, of course, meetings and pipeline, like bottom line impact. That's always really, really important to look at overall. How is your program performing?
That is amazing, Molly. You guys are obviously doing some really awesome things, and everyone that's viewing can see why Exclaimer is trying to become buddy with Mutiny, because they clearly have a lot of stuff figured out. But Molly, I'm curious, what's next? What's next for Mutiny? You're clearly doing a bunch of amazing work, but any new initiatives to expand on all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's kind of interesting about Mutiny, which I would say I speak with a lot of ABMers all the time, and I think our approach has been a little bit different. We've really started from scale. And so from day one, we're like, how do we at scale build 5,000 target account pages and start to get those in front of people? And so the thing that we're actually now leaning into more is true one-to-one top 10, really, really focused and deep partnership with our AEs. So we have an amazing ABM manager, Stella. I don't know if anyone here has spoken with her. She's just absolutely incredible. But she's just building new programs where she's deeply meeting every single week with every single AE, talking to them about their priorities, talking to them about their account. She's bringing her own research. They're bringing their context. They're bringing in like the Gong transcripts and AI, and they are like generating really, really custom, really cool programs. So getting more into like top tier, really custom one-to-one experiences for our top accounts.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I would like to think that we're not too far off from that, because I think that is just amazing getting to work with your sales team like that. But no, I think that's amazing. Alana, how about you? What's next for Exclaimer on the personalization front?
I mean, we are definitely chasing I think the standard that Mutiny has set. So I would love to, 6 months from now, a year from now, be able to sit in the same place and say that we're on the same pace as Mutiny. That's definitely part of the plan for us. But I think if I were to break that down a little bit further, two things that I would definitely be really excited to be able to say we've tackled and succeeded at rolling out is definitely more of that one-to-one. I think Molly spoke a lot about the focus on one-to-one. As much as work as we've done, we've still just barely scraped the surface of that. And so I think that's definitely going to be a priority for us, is taking all of that great work that we've already done, a lot of that brainstorming that we've done, and now having the tooling in place and the structure in place and starting to roll out some of those more automated one-to-one experiences that we can very easily scale. And then I think the other piece is leveraging more of our product. I think a lot of organizations struggle to use their own products, and we're definitely guilty of that. We've started to explore how to use the email signature banners as a way to drive more people to our microsites. And so I would love for us to be able to continue to do more of that, especially as we move into the one-to-one space.
Yep, that's great. If you ever want to talk about email signature banners for ABM, I'm your guy. I think it's me. So that is great. Okay. Well, thanks, Molly. Thanks, Alana. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and go into the Q&A segment. So you just saw Carly's note. Feel free to drop in any questions that you may have. I did think I saw a couple come through the Q&A side, and I'm just going to start going through those. So as I start going through them, again, feel free to throw them in there. But we have one here from Josephine. It says, how do you define an account, and how many contacts per account would you have? As I'm guessing it's not possible to have a personalized website for every prospective customer and a different website for every job title per account. Any advice on how many accounts or even industry vertical to get started with, if you segment them by revenue, would be appreciated.
Yeah, I can answer that in an unsatisfying way of like, it depends. Everyone loves that answer, right? But it really does depend on kind of your business. Certainly, like contacts per account, depends on your business, how many people you sell to, and who's in the buying committee. Number of accounts wise, this is just going to kind of depend on your tools to scale. So for example, like with Mutiny, it's custom built for scaling, not one-to-one personalization. And so really there's kind of no limit. I'd say there's probably different levels of quality that you can do when it comes to personalization for 5,000 accounts versus 100 accounts versus 10 accounts. You can definitely like pull different levers there. So for example, like with minimum ad sizes, if you want to distribute with ads, you can't run a one-to-one ad for 5,000 accounts, but you can run a one-to-one ad for 50 accounts as long as they're large enough and you're willing to sort of set up each of those. So it's kind of dependent upon your strategy and how tailored you want to get.
I think I can add a little bit of light to that as well from our perspective. When we were first starting out, a lot of the work was being done manually, and so when we were thinking about the answer to the how many kind of audience segments should we be focusing in on, we were looking at one-to-one. We picked an industry that we knew our product had a really good fit with. And using the insights we had already had on our sales team's ability to close these accounts, we used that as a way to prioritize. And initially, we only chose 10 target accounts at a one-to-one level within an industry to start with. And that's okay. At the time, we also didn't have really the tooling in place to help us scale further than that because we were building things manually. But it's okay to start small and really try and figure out where does this fit best. Again, we were using those insights that we had from our sales team, from our previous, sales data. But you also, as Molly touched on at the top of the call, I think so many of us at our organizations have so much insight into who's already visiting our website. There's so much data at our fingertips, and that's, I think, another way that you can help determine maybe the low-hanging fruit. If you do have, certain industries or certain segments that are over-indexing on your website, but maybe not converting very well, that could be a really great place to start because the people are already there. You just know that the gap maybe is serving the right content to them. So, if you don't want to, again, you can't do everything at once, but that could be a way that you could start to streamline things in terms of getting started, is where is that revenue potential? Where is that low hanging fruit? And again, start small. That's totally okay. And, I don't think anyone expects that you can get to 5,000 accounts like Mutiny does overnight. It takes time to build this kind of stuff up. And you really need to determine what's best for your business at the end of the day.
Yep, that's great. We have another one here from Kristen. It says, do you happen to have a grasp of the uplift you receive using personalization at scale versus personalization at mass strategies?
That's a good question. It's I find it personally quite hard to measure an uplift like that. Some companies I know will do like, for the accounts you personalize, what is the close rate? What is the, deal length or cycle length? What is the ACV compared to those that don't receive personalization? My personal problem with that is it's really biased, right? Because you've already pre-selected your best fit accounts to be the ones that you're focusing on for personalization. So they already have the higher propensity to close and the higher deal size and all of those things. So scientifically, it's quite hard to really nail that as an uplift. I'd say when we've done like one to many type of experiments on the website, like we're personalizing at scale for larger buckets, generally I see like 30 to 50% lifts in conversion rate. And that would be things like tailoring by industry or by persona, not the one-to-one. The one-to-one is almost, you have to sort of, you can measure like for sales outreach by channel, for example, sales outreach, how do like reply rates change? How do meetings booked changed when you have personalized assets versus when you don't? And for ads, you can measure sort of the one-to-one ad performance versus the one-to-many ad performance. So you can kind of channel specific measure those things.
Yep, that's great, Molly. That actually ties in perfectly to this next question I'm seeing, and it's directed at you. And it says, what comes first, sales team outreach or ads to target accounts?
Another unsatisfying, it depends. This is, I'd say, how good your team is at working cross-functionally. So if you are, as a marketing team, you're really, really tight with your sales team and you guys work really well together and you have that buy-in and you have that trust, that's a great channel, right? Now you have kind of two people, two teams or more that are working the same set of accounts and amplifying each other's efforts. That's incredible. That might not be the reality for you. And so ads, on the other hand, fully under your control, something you can completely own on your own as a marketer. And so I would say most often that's where I see marketers start. And what happens there sometimes is they get to then say, hey, we targeted those same accounts you're working. When we worked together, we had this impact. It had this sort of like halo effect on the accounts you're reaching out to. And here's how that worked together. But I think then, maybe that's a good case for you to then go justify, like, let's work more closely together. Let's partner together. And let's also coordinate these campaigns that we're running to have even higher impact.
Yeah. Alana, I'm seeing one in the Q&A for you, and it says, how important is it for businesses to constantly iterate and test their personalization strategies?
I think that's a great question. I think the testing and experimentation piece is something that's very near and dear to my heart, definitely. I think we talk a lot about, and we've talked a lot about it here, having these very concrete ideas of this is what we're doing for this audience. This is how we assume we can nail, personalization with them. But our assumptions are not always fact, and what we think works for someone doesn't always necessarily actually work for them and work for that specific segment. And so I think testing is a really big piece of it. I think it's really, really important to approach personalization with a testing mindset in place, because not everything you're going to roll out is going to work for everyone. And just because a certain message doesn't resonate with them doesn't mean that it's not worth personalizing for that specific segment. It might just mean the messaging isn't right. And so I think having that kind of iterative approach to testing copy, to testing imagery, we're constantly running A/B tests throughout our personalization, and then as a standalone initiative as well. And so I think you can really weave that into all the things that you do across personalization until you really get to a place where you're confident that you've nailed the messaging, you've nailed the imagery, you've nailed the buyer journey that you've created for someone through your digital channels. And even when you feel like you've nailed it, there's likely always more that you can test and iterate on and build on. I think to me, testing is really, when Molly had touched on that sprint piece, we always have something to aspire to, even when you feel like you've nailed something. Testing might prove otherwise. And so definitely, I think it's a big component of this, and really will help you enable getting to a place where you have this really, really well-oiled machine for your personalization strategy.
Absolutely. And all tactics have a shelf life. So you can't just keep doing the same thing and expect to still have the same results. You really have to have good dashboards, monitor performance over time. So for example, like one thing I'm seeing is email is it's just getting so crowded, and so it's working less well for everyone. And so the more you can diversify and add new channels, but continue to make sure that you're always watching, so you see conversion rates drop or channel performance drop, then you can always kind of iterate and move on from there.
Yep, I think that's awesome. All right, we probably have time for a couple more. Last call. If you have any questions, feel free to throw it in that chat. This one is from Mark, and he's explaining, I work for a SaaS company providing solutions for large attractions worldwide, so zoos, theme parks, and resorts. We've had success sending printed, tailored guides to our ICPs, showing how our app addresses their pain points. This has driven increased pipeline and booked meetings. However, scaling this approach is proving to be difficult due to the manual effort involved. Could you share advice on tools or tactics to streamline and scale such personalized campaigns?
Yeah,
That's
well,
Go
go
ahead,
for it,
Molly. No, I was going to say, I mean, it's a really great question. I think, we've obviously in this session have been talking about the digital component of personalization. I definitely think that, printed, tailored guides, absolutely. I can completely understand why that is labor intensive. It's probably really costly as well, I can imagine. I would be curious to know whether you have tried to reach these audiences in digital channels as well. I can imagine, a lot of what you're doing from a printed standpoint and the messaging that you're putting together can probably also be replicated from a digital standpoint. There's still going to probably be a cost associated to it, but that would probably be one of the things that I would start thinking about, if you're not already, is how do we start to replicate what we're doing, from a print standpoint, and starting to build out audiences across maybe key social channels, starting to build out more of those digital tactics to help support your printed strategy as well. So, but yeah, completely understand why that can be a challenge.
Yeah, totally. It reminds me of something I saw a customer do once, which was a marketer noticed that their sales team was building these tailored slide decks that like had the company's logo, and it had this company had custom notifications and push messages for mobile phones based on who the account was. So for example, like Tinder, if Tinder is their target account, they'd be like, find local matches here. Or if American Airlines was their customer, they'd be like, looks like you're approaching gate C. So they had those like really tailored messages. How they scaled this was they actually had their sales team write those custom hooks for every single account, and they just stored it as a field in Salesforce. So they had that kind of scaled asset that they could pull in as a variable in whatever channels, whether that's web or that's email or digital or things like that. And another way that they scaled the activity was, so for example, like your example was like theme parks. Maybe you have an image of a roller coaster. It's not branded for anyone, but it's just a general roller coaster. And then you can add the company logo on top of it. So you can make it Disney, you can make it Busch Gardens, you can sort of customize it at scale in that way.
Yep, that's great. We just had one come through the Q&A from Stefan, and it says, we are just beginning to try personalization in B2B marketing. What would be a good first step to start with it using the Exclaimer signature tool? Can you share some ideas, examples? And I can actually speak on that because that's something that I've been doing as part of our ABM campaigns over the past couple quarters. So we had a new feature release that officially integrates Exclaimer with Salesforce and HubSpot, and we use Salesforce. So now it's just becoming best practice for us as we set up a campaign to use email signatures as a delivery channel. So when we go to set up our campaign, we create an account list in Salesforce of our target account list, plug that in to the Exclaimer platform, and then add in personalized banners that, for that construction example that I went over earlier, speak directly to the construction audience, segmented by persona, and then, push them to the construction ABM page. So that's something that, we've started to pilot with a lot of our more high level one-to-many campaigns. And as Alana had spoke on earlier, we would love to get to the point where we can start doing that at a one-to-one level as well, because scaling is not really necessarily a roadblock when it comes to Exclaimer. We just got to do it, and we're really excited about that. So, okay, it looks like we might have time. Let's do one more. Molly, I saw one in here for you, and I'm gonna go dig around and find it. Where did it go? I'm not gonna leave him hanging. Okay, here it is. So, okay, here we go. So, Molly, who should be a part of your personalization team?
Sales and marketing, I have to say. I think anything else is a mistake. Like you have to bring sales and marketing together, and as you grow, that can expand to anyone on the revenue team, really go-to-market team, like customer success, anyone really that touches customers and has that insight. But basically what you want to do is mirror what marketing can bring is market research and overall impact, looking at signals, things like that are happening outside. And then what sales brings or customer success brings is that really deep customer knowledge and use case identification. And so marrying those two things and bringing them together, that's how you're going to have a really powerful team. And then any more resources you bring in, like if you have somebody separate that runs email campaigns, you have somebody separate that runs ad campaigns, your creative, your content team, events team, like any of those people that you bring in just sort of amplifies that effort. But bare minimum, I'd say one salesperson, one marketer is like the minimum team you need.
Totally. I think we're learning as well that it's not just like, let's set up a kickoff meeting with sales and we'll kick this thing off and we'll just let it run. We're finding that like it needs to be a go-to-market team that we're meeting on a regular basis and working together alongside the entirety of the campaign. So I think that's great. Okay. Well, I think that's it. Everyone, thanks again so much for taking the time to sit through this webinar on personalization and B2B marketing. Molly, Alana, Thanks again so much. I know we all found that very valuable and insightful, but I know we'll be following up. I think Carly put in the chat the links to Mutiny's playbook and our Lucid playbook, but we'll follow up with that as well with the recording. So thank you all again. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks for
everyone.
coming.